correct?
That's right.
One member who will not be returning, I think, sadly, is Congressman Barney Frank from Massachusetts.
By
choice, right. And one of the most colorful members of Congress, certainly. Yesterday,
smartest,
he
too.
gave, and the smartest.
The IQ has probably dropped a few points.
He was asked by a reporter whether his fellow members of Congress are as smart as he is. Here's Barney's response.
What I have found is that on the whole, the members of Congress are smarter than average. Now, here's the deal. And that's not been the case with people elected in 2010, and this isn't partisan. Ordinarily, to get elected to Congress takes a certain amount of energy and creativity. When you get one of those elections where one party wins overwhelmingly, it tends to sweep in some flotsam and jetsam.
So he says the class of 2010, they're not as smart as the rest of the members of Congress. Of course, he's referring to the Tea Partiers.
Of course. Well, you know, there's also a cute line about how Barney has a bad EQ and GQ. His IQ is, you know, startlingly high.
Certainly the GQ. Yeah. He doesn't rate very high on that.
And he doesn't care.
No, he doesn't care either. Boy, there's so much going on this week. I mean, I have to ask you as a friend, were you sometimes embarrassed this week to be a member of this Congress with a...
You didn't see my tweet the night that everyone went home, New Year's Eve, at 6:30, when we still had the fiscal cliff to deal with. I was sitting in my office and I said, you know, as a little girl growing up, I was told, you don't go home until you finish your job.
Yeah, right.
But he basically, the speaker, adjourned, and they went home to toast the new year when we hadn't finished our work. I was pretty disgusted.
Yeah, I'm sure you were. And then the next night, you went home. I mean, the fiscal cliff, I'm going to get to that, but you went home without finishing another important piece of work.
Right. And that was, of course, the financial aid for the victims of Sandy. And how can you, when people are suffering, as they have for months now, not do our work? And it was all about optics. And that's what everyone needs to appreciate. This is all about optics.
I don't understand.
Well, the speaker didn't want to then pass billions of dollars of aid that wasn't paid for Sandy relief after they had just bludgeoned everyone about the fact that we were about to go over the fiscal cliff and we had all these spending cuts that should have been imposed that weren't. But also, when you think about it, it was really an easy vote for everyone in the Congress.
Right.
Because we were basically giving a tax cut permanently that was a tax holiday, giving it permanently to 99% of the American people. And they couldn't bring themselves to do it because they were more concerned about their political future than they were about making sure the country didn't go into an economic morass. And that's because they were concerned about more conservative Republicans running against them in Republican primaries. That's all this was about. They had the blessings of Grover Norquist that this was not, what you see is not really a tax increase.
Right.
So they didn't have to worry about their pledges, but it was really about their next election.
It really comes down to a question of priorities, doesn't it? I mean,
it's more than priorities, Bill. It's fundamental. What are you here for? What are you here for? Are you here to just guarantee that you're reelected and take cautious votes because you want to make sure that you're protecting your personal flank, or are you interested in the American people's flank?
Well, here's the question then. Given, and that's not true of all Republicans, but it's certainly true of those who are driving the train right now in that Republican caucus, right? Given that, and that those districts where they come from are unlikely to change, is it even possible to govern these days?
I think we have to govern. We don't have a choice, right?
Right.
But it makes it that much more difficult because this fiasco that we've just gone through is going to be repeated. We are going to lurch forward from one crisis to another into the foreseeable future. And we've got 3 more coming up within the next few months.
Yeah. So let's talk about those. The president did say originally, I want a comprehensive deal, right? Meaning I don't want to have to nickel and dime this. I don't want to have to refight this battle in another month or 2 months, right? What we're going to have to, as you just pointed out, because the comprehensive deal he wanted would have done something about the debt ceiling, resolved that, and the sequester. Neither one of those are part of this deal. So one comes up in February, March, whatever, the debt ceiling, and then the sequester.
And then the continuing resolution.
And then that's right. So there are three battles coming up. Each one of them is going to be as difficult.
Well, because the expectation is, and I think we should assume that the Republicans will dig in their heels. They will really send us over the cliff like they did when we had the debt ceiling that had to be increased back in 2011, the summer of 2011. We saw what happened to the market. We saw what happened to our bond rating.
Right.
And this time, they're not going to be nearly as kind in terms of those that are rating us. And all of a sudden, it's going to have a profound impact. And again, debt ceiling is all about paying your credit card. We each get a credit card.
Right.
We buy things on credit. Each month we get a statement we're supposed to pay it. This is like basically saying, I'm not going to pay my statement. I'm just not going to pay it. We can't do that.
So you voted for this deal. Why?
Because it protects those who are unemployed today. It protects those who are low and middle income in terms of child care tax credits, in terms of the tuition credits for college students of families that are low and middle income. It does protect those under $250,000. Unfortunately, it went much farther than that.
Right.
And I'm one of those who would basically say that we should have continued this tax holiday for those making under $250,000 for a period of time for us to come out of the economic recession. But to somehow put these tax cuts in as permanent tax cuts, I think is defying what we are as Americans in terms of wanting to protect those on Medicare and Social Security and Medicaid, because we're running out of areas in which to cut without going to the bone of some of these programs that are truly safety net.
And even though there are no cuts to Social Security or Medicare, good for the president holding out on that, in this deal, right, you know that they're going to come back with a vengeance, the Republicans will, and demand those as a price for raising the debt ceiling. Correct? Isn't that what we can do?
And, you know, the president already put a card on the table for the change CPI, which is really much more deleterious than people have been led to believe in terms of how much money is taken out of senior citizens' Social Security checks. It is going to have a profound impact. So we're going to, protect those on the higher end of the financial scale and stick it to those on the lower end. There are things we have to do. Believe me, Medicare is way too expensive. It is one of the last bastions of fee-for-service. If you look virtually anywhere in California, for instance, it's capitated. Physicians are paid on a monthly basis, regardless of what kind of services they provide to a member. But fee-for-service and Medicare is how we're still operating. You can't do that moving into the future. Prescription drug benefit, how can we not demand a discount from the pharmaceutical companies in terms of Part D? I mean, those are things that we could take to the table that would have a serious beneficial impact that would not be harming the care to seniors.
So it sounds like you're saying, Congresswoman, that we didn't go over the cliff this time, but we might go over it in a couple of months, right? If we come to loggerheads again. The president has said, this time I'm not going to negotiate the debt ceiling, right? It's going to happen or it's not. I'm not going to, no back and forth on it. Can he possibly hold to that, do you believe?
I think he has to. And I was really very happy to hear him come out so strongly. I mean, he has really grown in his job. He's become a much better negotiator, although I probably would have negotiated this slightly differently. And I think making that statement now, drawing his line in the sand, is very, very important. Because the Republicans see some cold water splashed on them in terms of how far they think they can go. And I think Governor Christie was very powerful yesterday when he really, talked about the kind of palace intrigue that goes on in the Capitol right now. It is, a bunch of kids playing in a sandbox, throwing sand at each other. That really needs to cease. We need to get people coming to the table and doing what's right and stop trying to make, brownie points here and there without thinking about the greater good of the American